Hey guys, it's Miss Arlequin, and in this video we are going to look at best evidence questions and how we can analyze the answer choices and evidence in order to choose the best and correct answer. So that's our learning goal, is to look for the best answer choice when given a question that's really asking you to select the best answer or the best choice or the best detail. So best evidence questions are usually going to use the word best somewhere within the question. So examples would be which evidence best supports the idea that Katniss loves Peeta, or which evidence best supports the conclusion that Harry Potter is the chosen one. Usually with questions like this, all of the answer choices, or most of the answer choices, are going to actually look good. And there's usually going to be at least one, if not more, tempting answer choices. But what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to use logical reasoning to eliminate answer choices that are not as strong as other ones. So we're really talking about the little tip that I've taught you guys in class, looking for peanut butter cup evidence. Remember, the peanut butter cup evidence is the strongest. It's the piece of evidence that can stand all by itself. It doesn't need any further explanation. When you make the claim, the peanut butter cup evidence is the obvious detail that supports or proves that claim. The chocolate bar evidence is evidence that it's okay. It could show that claim, but it's not as strong, especially since that chocolate bar evidence could support other claims. There's other inferences that could be made from that evidence, or there's other, not conclusions, but there's other things or reasons that that evidence could actually match. All right, so we're going to look at a sample question. And best evidence questions are usually, for the most part, structured so that you don't even really need the entire passage to answer them. As long as you break down the question carefully and analyze and use logical reasoning to think through each of the answer choices, even without the passage, you should be able to get this question correct. Which sentence from the passage best supports the idea that carefully planning an environment is very important when designing a vivarium? All right, so I'm looking for something that shows that there's careful planning going into it, or that careful planning is essential. It will also give the animals that live there something to live on and dig in. All right, is there anything that has to do with planning? I don't see anything here that's planning. I'm not going to choose that answer. For example, a desert plant will not do well in the same conditions that a frog needs to thrive. All right, so if I know that something's not going to do well in certain conditions, then I'm going to have to actually plan which conditions, maybe do some research, study the different types of environments and the way they affect things. If I don't do that beforehand, if I just build the vivarium without planning, then this could be the answer. Once you've decided on the plants and animals, start building the environment for the vivarium. All right, this is very tempting because it says once you've decided, which means if I'm making decisions, I'm actually planning something. I'm not going to eliminate that one yet. I'm going to move on to D. D, if your lid is not clear, you will need to install a light inside the vivarium. All right, so this is not planning. This is actually just a tip of something that I have to do. So I'm stuck between B and C. So here, if I'm stuck between two answer choices, it's probably a case of peanut butter cup versus chocolate bar. A desert plant will not do well in the same conditions that a frog needs to thrive. I mean, you clearly have to plan so that this problem doesn't come up. And here it says once you've decided. Well, if I've actually made the decision, this really doesn't actually show planning. Once you've made the decision, you're going into action. And this is telling me start building. So planning is done. So I'm going to eliminate this one, and I'm going to go with B as the peanut butter cup evidence. Okay. In paragraph 7, Curie makes the following claim. It must be done for itself, for the beauty of science, and then there is always the chance that a scientific discovery may become, like the radium, a benefit for humanity. Which sentence from the speech best supports this claim? All right, so this is purely a question that's asking me to choose the best evidence. It's exactly like the model claim with peanut butter cup evidence, because peanut butter cup is the evidence that best supports the claim that Miss Arlequin loves chocolate. So let me think about this claim. Let me break it down. It must be done for itself, for the beauty of science, And then there's always a chance that a scientific discovery may become, like the radium, a benefit for humanity. Okay, so I have to prove that a scientific discovery could be good for humanity. Any scientific discovery will be good for humanity, just like the discovery of radium was good for humanity. All right, I think I get the claim. Now let's look at the evidence. Now the special interest of radium is in the intensity of its rays, which are several million times greater than the uranium rays. Does that show that it's benefiting humanity? No. So I'm going to eliminate that. If we take B, if we take a practical point of view, then the most important property of the rays is the production of physiological effects on the cells of the human organism. This is very tempting because I see the word human in there, which is related to humanity. The most important property of the rays is the physiological effects on the cells of the human organism. Does this show the discovery benefiting humanity? It might. I can't eliminate it. C, the medical utilization of radium makes it necessary to get that element in sufficient quantities. All right, it's necessary to get radium in sufficient quantities. That has nothing to do with benefiting humans, so I'm eliminating that. Even though I don't necessarily understand all of the words, I understand the gist. Necessary to get that element in quantities. I mean, having a certain amount of something doesn't show the benefits to people. D, but we must not forget that when radium was discovered, no one knew that it would prove useful in hospitals. Okay, this is clearly the correct answer. Even though I was tempted by B, just when I read D, if it's useful in hospitals, it's benefiting people, that's very strong evidence. It's way stronger than this really kind of hard to understand sentence that's just talking about physiological effects. It's not specific. It says it's affecting humans, actually, now that I think about it, but affecting it could be a bad way or a good way. All right, 23. Read this statement from the passage. As I look back upon the early struggles, this can be said. There was not a prouder family in the land. Which sentence from the passage could best be used as evidence to support this statement? All right, so let me break down the question. Let me look at the statement. As I look back upon the early struggles, all right, so they're having a hard time early in life. There was not a prouder family in the land. So what do I have to prove? I either have to prove that there were struggles, or I have to prove that even with the struggles, the family was proud. They weren't ashamed. Okay. A, I had just completed my 13th year, and I fairly panted to get to work, that I might help the family to a start in the new land. If he's anxious to get to work to help his family, does this show struggles or that he's proud? Does wanting to help your family show that you're proud of your family? Not really. If there's no better answer choice, I guess I could kind of go with this, but I'm not really feeling it. It's not really showing pride. I'm probably going to end up eliminating this choice unless there's no better answer. The next moment, she had broken down, but only for a few moments did tears fall and sobs come. All right, well, this shows struggles, but it doesn't show being proud. It only shows struggles. I really want to find these two things. Yes, mother would have taken her 2 boys, one under each arm, and perished with them rather than they should mingle with low company in their extreme youth. Okay, someone who doesn't want to associate with someone who they think isn't as good as them is the definition of being proud. So this is very, very good. In the winter, Father and I had to rise and breakfast in the darkness, reach the factory before it was daylight, and with a short interval for lunch, work till after dark. All right, so again, this is showing struggles, and this is showing struggles. So since they're both showing struggles and they're not showing pride, I think the best evidence is this one, C, because C is the only one of these pieces of evidence that shows that they are a proud family. They don't want to mingle or hang out with anybody that's not as good as them. Okay, let's look at one more together. Which of the following details from the passage best supports the claim that Andrew Carnegie felt a great sense of responsibility even as a child? All right, so I'm looking for any evidence that shows him being responsible or feeling responsible. It was because the suggested occupation was somewhat vagrant in character and not entirely respectable in her eyes. All right, if something is not respectable, I see the word respect in it. So the job, the occupation wasn't respected by this person. Does that show responsibility? No. It shows somebody doesn't like something. Tom and I could not help growing up respectable characters, having such a mother and such a father. All right, again, I see the word respectable, and he's talking about how they grew up to be respectable, to having respect, or being respected by others. It's got to be one of those two things, but that doesn't show responsibility. It just shows respect. Soon after this, Mr. John Hay, a fellow Scottish manufacturer of bobbins in Allegheny City, needed a boy and asked whether I would not go. All right, so somebody asked him to go get something for them. Does that show that he has a sense of responsibility just because the person asked him? If he goes, that shows maybe responsibility, but the sentence is not actually showing him going. It's just showing the person asking. So I'm eliminating this. I really hope D's correct. I found myself night after night sitting up in bed, trying the steam gauges, fearing at another time that the steam was too high and that the boiler might burst. If he's sitting up in bed, trying the steam gauges, fearing that the steam was too high. All right, so what does he do every night? Every night, he's making sure that the boiler is not bursting because he stays up and he's fixing the steam. What should he be doing at night? He should be sleeping. But he's so worried about something, he makes it his responsibility to take care of it. This is the correct answer. That's the best evidence. All right, so as you can see, these questions were very difficult, much harder than the ones we originally practiced with. However, it is still the same process. You really want to break apart the question, put the question in your own words, think about what it's asking you, and then with the evidence, you want to make connections. You want to be able to retell it, to think it through with logical reasoning. So if you'd like to practice some additional best evidence questions, I have put some more practices into the Google Drive test prep folder. Please feel free to practice them, and hopefully you're going to get them all correct like I just did.